The hiking boots sat by my bedroom door, laces already tied the night before. I'd spent an hour preparing my backpack, water bottles, energy bars, first aid kit. Even the trail map I'd studied until I could trace the route in my sleep. My family rarely invited me anywhere, and when Mum mentioned the annual family hike to Eagles Peak, something in her voice made me believe this time I mattered. I was wrong. The trailhead parking lot was already crowded when we arrived. Dad unloaded gear from the trunk while my sister Lily stretched against the car, her expensive hiking outfit pristine and perfectly coordinated. She looked like she'd stepped out of an outdoor magazine. I glanced down at my worn jeans and faded jacket, suddenly conscious of how invisible I must seem beside her. "Ready, sweetheart?" Dad asked, but he was looking at Lily. "Always," she smiled, and he beamed. Mum handed out trail mix, giving Lily the bag with the chocolate pieces, me the one with mostly raisins. Small things, always small things, but they accumulated like stones in my chest until I could barely breathe. My boyfriend Derek arrived minutes later with his hiking group, college friends I'd met a few times but never really knew. He kissed Lily on the cheek in greeting, casual and brief, then nodded at me. Just nodded. We'd been dating 8 months, but somehow Lily always commanded his attention first. "The trail's about 6 miles, Derek announced to the group. "We'll stop at the waterfall midpoint, then push for the summit. Everyone good with that pace?" Murmurs of agreement. I opened my mouth to ask about the alternate route I'd seen on the map, the scenic path that looped through the canyon. But Derek was already walking, and everyone followed. I fell into step at the back. The morning was beautiful. Sunlight filtered through pine branches, and the air smelled of earth and wild sage. I tried to enjoy it, tried to lose myself in the rhythm of walking, but my family's voices drifted back to me in fragments that cut deeper than they should. "Lily, tell them about your promotion," Mum said. "It's nothing really," Lily demurred, but launched into the story anyway. Her voice carried effortlessly, musical and confident. Everyone listened. Dad asked questions. Derek's friends congratulated her. She had this way of making even ordinary accomplishments sound extraordinary. I'd gotten a promotion too 3 weeks ago. I'd mentioned it at dinner once. Mum had said, "That's nice, dear," and changed the subject to Lily's upcoming gallery opening. An hour into the hike, my boots started rubbing blisters. I'd broken them in, or thought I had, but each step now sent sharp pain through my heels. I tried to keep pace, but the group was moving faster, their conversation animated and easy. No one looked back. "Hold up!" I called, stopping to adjust my sock. Lily glanced over her shoulder. "We're trying to make good time, Sienna." "I just need a second." "We can't keep stopping," Dad said. Not unkindly, but with that edge of impatience I knew so well. "Catch up when you're ready." They kept walking. I stood there on the trail alone, listening to their laughter fade into the forest. My hands shook as I retied my boot. This was fine. This was normal. I'd catch up. I always caught up. Except I couldn't. The blister had opened, and every step was agony. I pushed through it, limping, falling further behind. The trail forked ahead, the main path continuing straight, the scenic route branching left. I could see my family disappearing around a bend on the main trail, moving like they'd forgotten I existed. I stopped at the fork, breathing hard. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Making great time. See you at the summit." Not, "Where are you?" or "Need help?" Just an assumption I'd figure it out. I looked down the scenic trail, quieter and empty. Something in my chest cracked open. They hadn't just left me behind. They had never been walking with me at all. I took the scenic route. The canyon path was steeper, more challenging, but beautiful in a way that demanded attention. Wildflowers grew between rocks. A hawk circled overhead. I walked slowly, favouring my good foot, and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down. The loneliness, the invisibility, the exhaustion of loving people who only saw me as background noise. 2 hours later, I reached a rocky outcropping that overlooked the valley. I could see the main trail in the distance, tiny figures moving toward the peak. My family, Derek, all of them together, complete without me. I sat down on the rocks and cried. Not loud, wrenching sobs, but quiet tears that slid down my face and dripped onto the stone. I cried for every birthday where Lily's gifts were thoughtful and mine were afterthoughts. For every conversation where my words disappeared into silence. For every time Derek looked at me like I was convenient, not chosen. I cried until I had nothing left. The sun was setting when I finally stood. My phone had died hours ago. The trail back down was darker, more treacherous. I took it carefully, each step deliberate. By the time I reached the parking lot, it was full night. Our car was gone. They'd left without me. I stood under the flickering parking lot light, staring at the empty space where our vehicle had been, and something inside me went very still. Not angry, not hurt anymore, just quiet. A park ranger found me 20 minutes later and drove me to the ranger station. I called Mum from their office phone. "Sienna, where are you? We've been worried sick." "I took the scenic trail," I said. My voice sounded strange to me, flat and distant. "I'm at the ranger station." "The scenic trail? Why would you—" "We waited at the summit for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. They'd waited 20 minutes before deciding I wasn't worth the concern. "I'll get a cab home," I said. "Are you sure? We're already halfway back and—" "I'm sure." I hung up while she was still talking. The cab ride home took 90 minutes. I watched the dark highway roll past and felt like I was watching my life from outside my body. Everything seemed distant and unreal. The driver tried to make conversation, but I couldn't find words. At home, I walked past the living room where my family had gathered, animated and laughing about the hike. They'd already transformed it into a story where I was barely a footnote, if that. "Sienna," Lily called. "You scared us. Why didn't you keep up?" I paused in the doorway. She looked genuinely confused, like my absence had been a minor inconvenience rather than abandonment. "I don't know," I said. "Why didn't you wait?" The question hung in the air. No one answered. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on my bed. The hiking boots sat by the wall, mud-stained and worn. I took them off slowly, methodically, and placed them in the trash. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, something had shifted. Or maybe it had broken. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I went to work, came home, existed. Derek texted asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I said I was tired. He didn't push. Lily invited me to her gallery opening. I said I had other plans. She didn't ask what they were. Days passed. Weeks. I moved through my life like a ghost, and no one seemed to notice. The apartment I'd been saving for suddenly felt urgent. I signed the lease 2 weeks later, a small studio across town. Mum protested weakly when I told her I was moving out, but the relief in her eyes was unmistakable. One less complication in a house that revolved around Lily's needs and schedule. I packed my things in silence. Lily helped for an hour before her phone rang, some emergency with her gallery, and she disappeared. Dad loaded boxes into my car without really looking at me, his mind already elsewhere. Mum kept asking if I was sure, if I'd really thought this through, but she never asked me to stay. The studio was small and bare, but it was mine. I arranged my books on the shelf, hung my photos on the wall, and sat on the floor in the middle of the empty room, feeling something like peace. 3 months after the hike, I was driving home from work when a truck ran a red light. I saw it coming. I had time to think, this is it. Time to feel strangely calm about it. Time to think about hiking boots in the trash and phone calls no one returned, and a life spent chasing people who never looked back. The impact was instant and final. There was no tunnel of light, no life flashing before my eyes, just sudden, complete darkness, and then nothing, and then everything. I woke up screaming, my hands clutched at sheets, at air, at anything solid. My heart slammed against my ribs. I was alive, breathing, whole. The room spun, then settled. My room, my childhood bedroom with the faded wallpaper and the desk by the window. I lurched to the window. Outside, my mother's garden looked different, smaller, less established. The oak tree in the yard was thinner than I remembered. My phone sat on the nightstand. I grabbed it with shaking hands. The date glowed up at me, 3 years earlier, 6 months before the hike. I stared at it until the screen went dark, then stared at my reflection in the black glass. I was 23 again, young, unburdened by the weight of 3 more years of disappointment. But I remembered everything. Every moment of the hiking trail, every ignored phone call, every time I'd made myself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. The accident, the darkness, the studio apartment I'd lived in alone, the promotions at work that no one celebrated, the quiet birthday dinners for one. The end. I sat on the edge of my bed and breathed. This was impossible. This was insane. This was real. I had died and I had come back, and I remembered. The knowledge settled over me like a second skin, not a burden, but armor. I knew how the story ended. I knew what happened when I kept trying, kept hoping, kept believing that eventually they would see me. They never did. This time, I wouldn't wait for them to look. I spent the first week simply observing, watching my family move through their routines, seeing with clear eyes what I'd been too desperate to acknowledge before. The way Dad's face lit up when Lily entered a room. The way Mum's voice softened when speaking to her, stayed neutral and distracted when speaking to me. The way dinner conversations flowed around Lily's interests and skimmed past mine. I wasn't imagining it. I never had been. The first test came that evening at dinner. Mum had made pot roast, Lily's favourite. I used to pretend to love it too, used to pile my plate high and smile through every bite, even though I hated the way the meat fell apart in thick, greasy chunks. Tonight, I took a small portion of vegetables and nothing else. "Not hungry, Sienna?" Mum asked, but she was already turning to Lily. "Tell your father about the art commission." Lily launched into the story. I ate my vegetables slowly, tasting each bite, and felt a strange calm. I wasn't angry, I wasn't hurt. I was simply done. After dinner, Dad retreated to his study. Mum and Lily cleared the table, their voices a familiar harmony of shared jokes and easy affection. I went to my room and started making lists, things I wanted to do, places I wanted to see, goals that were mine, not echoes of what I thought I should want. I wrote until my hand cramped, filling pages with dreams I'd buried under the weight of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. 3 days later, Lily asked me to help her move furniture for a photo shoot. In my first life, I'd said yes immediately. I'd spent 6 hours hauling chairs and adjusting lighting, while she directed me like a personal assistant. Derek had shown up halfway through and helped for 15 minutes before he and Lily went to grab coffee, leaving me to finish alone. "I can't," I said now. I have plans." Lily blinked. "Plans? What plans?" "Personal plans. Sienna, I really need help with this. It's for a really important client." "I'm sure you'll figure it out." I walked away while she was still processing my refusal. It felt like stepping off a cliff, terrifying and liberating in equal measure. She didn't ask again. Derek was easier. We'd been dating 4 months when he first started showing more interest in Lily than me. In my first life, I'd ignored it, made excuses, convinced myself I was imagining things. I'd watched their friendship deepen while our relationship stayed surface level, and I told myself it was fine, normal, nothing to worry about. This time, when he texted asking if I wanted to meet his friends, I said no. When he called confused, I was clear. I don't think this is working. What? Why? Did I do something? No, I said, and meant it. He hadn't done anything yet, but I'd already lived through what came next. The casual touches that lasted too long, the inside jokes I wasn't part of, the way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. We just want different things. Sienna, come on, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Take care, Derek. I hung up and blocked his number before he could call back. 2 days later, Lily mentioned that Derek had called her, confused and asking if I was okay. Are you okay? Lily asked, something almost like concern in her voice. I'm fine, I said. Just making better choices. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Good. The weeks unfolded with a strange sense of déjà vu. I knew what was coming. The small cruelties, the casual dismissals, the moments where I'd be expected to shrink so Lily could shine. But now I could sidestep them, could choose different responses, could simply not participate in my own diminishment. When Mum asked me to skip my work presentation to help with Lily's gallery setup, I said no. When Dad forgot my birthday, again, I didn't cry in my room. I took myself out for dinner at the nicest restaurant in town and ordered everything I wanted. I sat alone at a table by the window and felt more present, more seen than I ever had surrounded by family who looked through me. I joined a photography class at the community centre. The instructor was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a way of seeing beauty in unexpected places. She taught me to look for light, for composition, for the stories hidden in ordinary moments as us. You have a good eye, she told me after my third class. You notice things other people miss. I'd spent my whole life being the thing other people missed. It felt revolutionary to be the one doing the noticing. I started hiking alone, taking trails I'd never explored, learning to trust my own pace. The first time I went, I was terrified. The woods felt too quiet, too empty. But I pushed through the fear and found something else on the other side, a sense of capability, of self-reliance, of strength I hadn't known I possessed. I hiked every weekend after that, short trails at first, then longer ones. I learned to read topographic maps, to pack efficiently, to trust my instincts about weather and trail conditions. I bought proper boots and broke them in gradually, methodically, on small hikes before attempting anything challenging. Each trail taught me something. Each summit I reached alone proved something I doubted about myself. I made new friends, people who asked about my day and listened to the answer. Jamie from photography class, who invited me to gallery openings, blangistes, and actually wanted my opinion on the art. Alex from the hiking group I joined, who had the same dark humour and appreciated long, comfortable silences on the trail. Rachel from work, who'd been trying to befriend me for months, but I'd always been too busy chasing after my family's attention to notice. These people chose me, not because we shared blood or history, but because they actually liked who I was. I stopped shrinking, and as I expanded, my family's confusion grew. You seem different, Mum said one evening, her tone caught between concern and accusation. I am different, I said. Is everything all right? You're not acting like yourself. Maybe I'm finally acting like myself. She didn't know what to say to that. She went back to sorting through paint swatches for Lily's studio renovation, and I went back to editing photos on my laptop. We sat in the same room, miles apart, and I felt nothing but acceptance. Lily tried harder to involve me in her life, but in ways that still centred her needs. Invitations to be her assistant at events, requests for favours, questions about whether her outfit looked good. Never asking about my photography, my hikes, my life. She wanted an audience, not a sister. I started saying no more often than yes. The months crawled toward the date I remembered. The date of the hike. Mum brought it up at dinner 6 weeks before. So, The annual family hike is coming up. Eagles Peak again this year. Lily, you'll bring your new camera? Absolutely, Lily said. The sunrise shots last year were incredible. Mum turned to me, almost as an afterthought. Sienna, you'll join us. In my first life, this was the moment I'd felt seen. The moment I believed things were changing. I'd prepared for that hike like it was a test I could finally pass. No, I said simply. The table went silent. No, Mum repeated. I have other plans. What other plans? I'm going on my own trip. I booked a cabin in the mountains. Solo hiking retreat. Lily laughed. Since when do you hike alone? Since now, Dad frowned. Sienna, this is a family tradition. Then you'll have a wonderful time as a family, I said. My voice was steady, calm. I wasn't angry, I wasn't hurt, I simply didn't need their validation anymore. I don't understand this attitude, Mum said, her voice sharpening. We're trying to include you. Are you? I met her eyes. Or are you going through motions? The silence stretched. No one had an answer. Because it feels like I'm an obligation, I continued, my voice quiet but clear. Something you check off a list. And I'm tired of being a checkbox. Sienna, that's not fair, Lily started. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked about my life, my work, what I care about? More silence. I got promoted, I said. 6 weeks ago. Did anyone know that? Their faces told me everything. I've been taking photography classes. I've hiked 12 different trails in the past 3 months. I made a new friend who's teaching me rock climbing. I set down my fork. None of you know any of this because none of you have asked. You never mentioned, Mom began. I did. You just weren't listening. I excused myself and went to my room. Behind me, I heard low voices. Mom and Dad talking, Lily's higher pitch cutting through. They were talking about me, probably trying to understand what had shifted, where this new version of me had come from. They didn't realise I'd been here all along. They just hadn't bothered to look. The weekend of the hike, I drove 4 hours north to a cabin I'd rented sight unseen. It was small and rustic, perched on a hillside with a view of endless forest. No Wi-Fi, no cell service, just quiet and space and time. I spent 3 days hiking trails I chose myself, reading books I'd been meaning to read, and sitting on the porch watching stars emerge in the enormous sky. I photographed sunrise from a mountain peak, the light spilling across valleys like liquid gold. I cooked simple meals and ate them slowly, savouring each bite. I sat by a creek and listened to water over stones until my thoughts quieted completely. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder what they were doing. I didn't miss them. For the first time in my life, I felt complete without needing anyone else to make me whole. When I returned, there were texts waiting. Mum, the hike was lovely. Wish you'd been there. Lily, got some great photos. Family's not the same without you. Derek, heard you weren't at the hike. We should catch up. I deleted them all. Life continued its strange parallel track. I knew what would happen in my first timeline. Derek and Lily growing closer, eventually dating, getting engaged 6 months after my death. My family slowly forgetting I'd ever existed, their lives continuing smoothly without the complication of a daughter who didn't quite fit. But this timeline was different because I was different. I stopped waiting for them to choose me. I stopped hoping for change. I simply lived my life on my terms and let them live theirs. 2 weeks after the hike that never happened, Lily showed up at my apartment unannounced. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the living room. My apartment was different from the one I'd had before, better, brighter, filled with my photographs on the walls and books I actually wanted to read on the shelves. About what? About whatever's going on with you. You've been distant, You're avoiding family. You won't return calls. I return the calls that matter, I said. She flinched. What does that mean? It means I'm done being the person who shows up for everyone while no one shows up for me. That's not fair. We've always been there for you. Have you? I kept my voice level. Name one time you prioritized me over yourself. One time you noticed I was struggling and asked if I was okay. One time you chose me. Lily opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Sienna, that's not... You can't, can you? Her eyes filled with tears, but they felt performative. She was used to tears working, used to emotion giving her the upper hand. I'm not trying to hurt you, I said. I'm just done pretending. You have Mum and Dad's attention. You always have. And that's fine, but I don't need to fight for scraps anymore. We're family. Family shows up, I said quietly. Family notices. Family cares. You asked me to help move furniture 3 months ago. Do you know what I was doing that day? She shook her head. I was giving a presentation at work. The one that led to my promotion. I mentioned it at dinner the week before. You were on your phone the entire time I talked. I didn't. You did. And that's fine. I'm not asking you to care now. I'm just explaining why I've stopped expecting it. I walked to the door and opened it. Lily stood frozen for a moment, then walked out. She paused on the threshold. Derek's been asking about you. I know. He misses you. He misses the idea of me. There's a difference. What does that mean? It means he liked having a girlfriend who didn't ask for much, who made everything easy, who didn't notice when his attention wandered. I met her eyes. To you, specifically. She flushed. That's not... We're just friends. I know, for now. I closed the door gently but firmly. That night, Derek called from a blocked number. Sienna, please, just talk to me. There's nothing to say. I don't understand what happened. Everything was fine, and then you just disappeared. I didn't disappear. I'm right here. You just never really looked. That's not true. Tell me 3 things I care about, I said. 3 things that matter to me. Not things I do for you or with you. Things that are mine. Silence. You can't, I said softly. We dated for 4 months and you never learned anything about me. That's not fair. It's completely fair. I could tell you everything about you. Your favourite coffee order, the books you love, the way you think about the world. You know nothing about me because you never asked. I care about you. You care about the version of me that was easy, that didn't challenge you or ask to see me as a whole person. Sienna, we weren't right for each other. We both know it. Let it go. I hung up. He didn't call again. Months turned into a year, then 2. I built a life that was mine. I got promoted twice. The second promotion came with a corner office and a team I loved leading. My boss praised my eye for detail, my ability to see problems before they developed. All those years of being overlooked had taught me to notice everything. I travelled to places I'd only dreamed about. Iceland for the northern lights, Japan during cherry blossom season, a solo trek through New Zealand that tested every skill I'd learned and taught me new ones. I made friends who knew me, really knew me, and chose me anyway. Jamie became my closest confidant, the person I called when life felt overwhelming or extraordinary. We had standing dinner dates every Tuesday, where we talked about everything and nothing, where I felt seen and heard and valued. I dated people who asked questions and listened to answers, who noticed when I was quiet and cared enough to find out why. None of them lasted. I was still learning what healthy love looked like, still undoing years of accepting crumbs. But each relationship taught me more about what I deserved. I stopped waiting for my family to see me, and strangely, impossibly, they started looking. Mum called more often, her voice uncertain in ways I'd never heard. She asked about work, about my travels, seemed genuinely interested when I told her about the photography exhibition I'd been invited to participate in. "I'd love to come," she said, "if that's okay." "Sure," I said, non-committal. She came to the opening, stood in front of my photographs, landscapes from my solo hikes, intimate portraits of my friends, quiet moments of beauty I'd learned to notice, and cried. "These are incredible," she whispered. "I didn't know you could do this." "You never asked," I said, not unkindly. She flinched but didn't argue. Lily invited me to coffee, not to ask for favours, but to actually talk. She seemed smaller somehow, less certain. Her gallery was struggling. A recent relationship had ended badly. She'd been the golden child so long she'd never learned to handle difficulty. "How do you do it?" she asked. "You seem so together." "I learned to rely on myself," I said, "because I had to." "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for not being there, for not seeing you." "I know." "Can we start over?" I considered it. She seemed genuine, seemed like she was finally recognizing what she'd taken for granted. But I'd spent too many years hoping for this moment, and now that it had arrived, I felt mostly tired. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe we can start from here. Not over, just forward." She nodded, grateful for even that small opening. Dad asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested in the answers. He started sending me articles he thought I'd like, memes that matched my humour, small gestures, but consistent. Too late, not said with anger, but with quiet truth. The recognition I'd craved for years was finally arriving, but I no longer needed it. I'd found myself in the absence of their approval, and I liked who I'd become. 3 years after my rebirth, I stood at the same trailhead where everything had broken. Eagle's Peak rose in the distance, familiar and foreign. I'd come alone, full circle, ready to hike the trail that had once defined my lowest moment. This time I wore proper boots, carried the right gear, knew my own capabilities. This time I was prepared. "Sienna?" I turned. Derek stood by a car, older, softer somehow. Lily stood beside him, her hand in his. Of course. In my first life, they'd gotten together 6 months after my death. I'd read about their engagement in an obituary search, a strange footnote to my own ending. Now they were together in this timeline too, following the same path despite my absence from it. Some things were inevitable. "Hey," I said. "We didn't know you still came here," Lily said. She looked uncomfortable, guilty. "I don't, usually. Today's special." "Are you, Derek cleared his throat. "Are you hiking alone?" "I am." He exchanged a glance with Lily. "Do you want company?" I looked at them. Really looked. They weren't villains. They were just people who'd never learned to see past themselves. And I'd spent so long trying to force them to look my way that I'd forgotten I could simply walk in a direction where I was already visible. "No," I said. "Thank you, but no." "Sienna," Lily started. "I hope you're happy," I said, and meant it. "Both of you." I turned toward the trail. "Sienna, wait," Derek called. "We've been trying to reach you to apologise." "For what?" They looked at each other, lost. "We don't really know," Lily admitted. "But you deserved better from all of us." Something in my chest loosened, just slightly. "Yeah," I said. "I did." "Can we start over?" Derek asked. I considered it. Considered all the ways I could let them back in, let them try, give them the second chance I'd been given. But I'd already lived that story. I knew how it ended. "I don't think so," I said. "I'm good where I am." Lily's eyes filled. "I miss you," I know. We all do. Mom, Dad, everyone asks about you. That's kind, I said. And it was kind. It just wasn't enough. I adjusted my backpack, checked my laces. My boots were new, broken in perfectly over dozens of practice hikes. Ready. I have to go, I said. The trail's waiting. Which trail are you taking? Derek asked. I smiled. My own. I walked away while they were still standing there, watching. I didn't look back to see if they followed. I didn't wonder if they'd, wait. I simply walked, steady and sure, into the forest. The trail wound upward, challenging and beautiful. Sunlight filtered through branches. Birds called in the distance. My footsteps fell into an easy rhythm. The pace I'd learned. From months of solo hiking, the confidence that came from knowing exactly what I could handle. At the fork, the place where everything had changed, I paused. The Maynard Trail stretched ahead, well-worn and familiar. The scenic route branched left, wilder and less travelled. I smiled and turned left. The canyon opened before me, vast and quiet. I walked it slowly, taking in every detail. Wildflowers bloomed between rocks. A stream ran parallel to the path, its voice a constant whisper. The hawk circled overhead, the same or different, impossible to know. Hours later, I reached the outcropping where I'd once sat and cried. I sat again, but I didn't cry. I looked out over the valley, over the main trail visible in the distance, over the peak where my family had once stood without me, and I felt nothing but peace. I pulled out my camera and photographed the view. The late afternoon light was perfect, golden and warm. I'd learned to see beauty everywhere, even in the places that had once held only pain. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and violet. I stayed until the last light faded, until stars emerged in the darkening blue. Then I stood, shouldered my pack, and started down. The trail back was dark but familiar. I knew every step. I'd walked it before, and I'd walk it again. But this time, I was walking towards something, not away. This time, I was whole. At the trailhead, my car waited. I loaded my gear, started the engine, and pulled onto the highway. The road stretched ahead, illuminated by headlights, leading somewhere I'd never been. I drove, and I didn't look back. Behind me, somewhere in the darkness, my old life faded into memory. My family, my sister, the boy who'd never really seen me, all of them receding like landmarks on a road I'd already travelled. I thought about the accident that had ended everything and somehow given me everything back. I thought about the impossible gift of war, knowing how the story ended before living it. And I thought about the choice I'd made. Not revenge, not bitterness, just a different path. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from Mum. "We missed you today. Please come home." I glanced at it, then back at the road. Home wasn't a place I returned to. It was a place I was still finding. I left the message unread and kept driving. Into the night, into the unknown, into a future I was writing myself. And somewhere behind me, maybe they finally understood. Maybe they stood in empty rooms and felt my absence like I'd once felt theirs. Maybe they waited by phones that never rang. Maybe they looked for me in crowds and realised I was no longer searching for them. Maybe they regretted it, but I was already gone, and I wasn't coming back. Not because I hated them, but because I'd finally learned to love myself more. The highway stretched ahead, endless and open. I smiled and pressed the accelerator. Ahead of me, city lights began to glow on the horizon. My apartment waited there, with its walls covered in my photographs and shelves full of my books. Jamie would be expecting my call tomorrow about our Tuesday dinner. My climbing lesson was scheduled for Saturday. My next photography exhibition was 2 months away. A life I'd built, a life I'd chosen, a life that was completely, entirely mine. The road welcomed me forward, and I drove toward everything I'd never let myself want. Free. Whole. Home.